All right. Going over my MOOC today. This one is basically about mastering Unity, starting from basically knowing nothing. So it's called Master Unity from Zero to Foundations. I've already kind of completed it. So normally this claim your certificate isn't right there, but uh, we'll kind of go see if we can get back into the course here. So as you can see, you basically start uh, here, and it starts you out in the first module. There are 5 modules. The first one, or module one, begins with just basically downloading and setting up Unity Hub, and then uh, using Unity Hub to then set up and install Unity. It takes you all the way through looking up on the website, finding the website, where to go on the website, how to download it, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty basic and thorough as far as that goes. Uh, it also then starts to cover how you create new projects, how you navigate, and how you can customize Unity's user interface. Tells you where to find different elements and parts of the overall build. It concludes with an introduction to transformations in Unity. That's talking about things like location and rotation and things like that, and scales. Uh, so when you move stuff around for game objects, that's what it's basically telling you. Uh, Part two of this course continues with creating basic shapes like cubes and spheres, so three-dimensional shapes, uh, and applying textures to them. So you want to make them look like they're made out of marble or steel or something like that, or brick or whatever. You can apply a texture to the surface of them, and it goes over how to do that. It also introduces first person and third person game controls, where you have the camera follow you and tells you how you do that. So the camera follows wherever you go, and you can move it around. Pretty simple stuff. A lot of that's really just built into Unity. You just have to like turn it on, kind of a thing. And then it ends with a section of combining boxes or cubes to create a staircase. So how you can use the simpler shapes to make more complicated ones. Part three starts to focus on game assets and objects, shows you how to find them, where they are, how to use them. It covers also exporting a scene either to an executable file that you can run on your computer or even to WebGL for use on a website. Part four guides students through creating an indoor 3D maze. Uh, it covers how to construct the maze, how to add textures to the walls and create the walls, and even how to add lighting throughout the maze in different locations wherever you want to make it lighter or darker in those kind of places. And then part five, kind of the biggest part of it, explores creating an outdoor environment, and this is done through the creation of an island. This includes making what they refer to as realistic landscapes. However, I think the result you end up with would be uh, you'd have to put a lot more work into to get it to be realistic, I guess, as far as like the water and stuff goes. Some of the pre-built assets for trees and things like that, um, those are pretty good. But for the most part, it's not like photorealistic or really anywhere kind of near to that for most of the stuff. They're pretty simplistic, especially as you make hills and buildings and valleys and stuff like that. It even takes you to adding in pre-built vehicles that you can get from Unity, like cars and airplanes, and how to drive them around and control them and add them to the scene and traverse the landscape. And even has some water simulation, some basic water simulation stuff you can add around the island. This thing basically culminates with the creation of this island and you being able to navigate around in this island that you made. Uh, the audience for this, I would say, is pretty much anybody, pretty broad. Anybody that wants to get into game making in Unity, especially 3D game making. It's not really specific to any one genre of video games. It's not specific to like an MMO or an RPG or a strategy or adventure game or tower defense or anything like that. Um, a lot of what you learn can be applied to all those different kind of things. Of course, some of those are going to be, if you're going to make one of those kind of things, it's going to take a lot more than just these basics that you're taught here. For how to start doing that, you'd have to get into the more advanced kind of stuff. So yeah, I pretty much think it's for just about anybody who is interested in that. It doesn't seem to be geared more towards one age group or anything like that, or one group of people that likes one certain kind of game or anything like that. The highlights in this course, I would say the major highlights were the fundamental parts at the beginning, just setting up Unity, how to do that, some basics of it. And then, of course, getting to make a maze and getting to make an island with functional vehicles was very big, I thought. Probably would get you interested in continuing on and learning more. I'm also going over a little bit of lowlights here after the highlights. The course occasionally interrupted progress by taking me out of the session. And then when it would take me to something, there was no clear way to continue the course without going back to the beginning and then clicking through to where I was and finding where I was. In fact, I think this even happened. And the reason I kind of discovered this was that I only did the first couple of modules. And then somehow, and I'm not sure how, I ended up on a test, which I thought was just a test. And so I took the test and I passed the test, and then it offered me my certificate. And so then it took me a while to realize, trying to figure out, wait, I get a certificate for just completing the first two modules. Like, what do I do after that? And it turned out that I somehow ended up taking the final test, and it, passed it, and it told me I could have the certificate. Of course, I had to pay for the certificate, but you can even see up here in the right corner, I've only got 72% complete of this module. Like, I don't think I ever, finished all the questions and everything like that and answered them all that are at the end of each little section. So that was a little confusing and took me a while to figure out and get back in and start looking at the rest of it. I also thought some of the true-false questions that it asked to decide at the end of the sections if you learned what you were supposed to learn were a little too specific for an introductory course. It was very detailed focused, like Control F1 or Control 7 is the shortcut for, whatever, rather than broader ideas like, you can create a game object by dragging it over into the game environment. Like that kind of a thing would have been something that I thought would have been more appropriate questions than, going through the course and remembering all the keyboard shortcuts. Especially when some of them are Control 1 and Control 2, Control 3, Control 4, and stuff like that. The rigor of the course, I thought was pretty appropriate for beginners with little to no background in programming or using a game engine. If you're coming from a different game engine or you're fairly good at programming already, you're probably going to find this a little too basic and too slow paced for you. So it might be a little too simplistic for you, but if you're just starting out and you don't have a lot of coding experience or scripting experience or game making experience, it's probably a good way to learn to move around the program and get it running. The overall quality, of course, is pretty good. Some elements that you end up making in there are very basic. So you have very realistic trees that you got from Unity themselves, pre-made ones. But then you have these very basic looking buildings that are basically just a giant cube with some lines on them. But again, it's a good starting point if you're trying to get into this game development. I'm not sure exactly what I would include in my own teaching from this or incorporate from it. I do like how easy it was to navigate. It's pretty simple. You just kind of click and like this, and it takes you through, and then you play a video, and then you click, and it takes you through, and you play and watch that video, and so on and so forth like this. And then you get to the true false questions like this one. This one I thought was a little bit too specific of a question for, an introductory kind of thing like that when you're just watching that, but maybe that's just me. So I wouldn't take the questions from it. I do like the format of it, the kind of simple, just click through it and takes you through one part at a time. It had good, told you what you were supposed to do and everything like that. And, There were no real instructions on it, on how to actually navigate through the course, but it was kind of obvious when you open it up. There was an arrow pointing to the right and an arrow pointing to the left, and you just, you clicked on one to go forward and one to go backwards. Uh, so that was pretty good. It was pretty intuitive. I did like some of the question formats where you could drag and drop things around to order them. Uh, those were great for like doing the steps and doing something like that. So it was good for this for coding. Like you have to do this first, and then you have to make this, and then you have to make that. Which I can see even working pretty well in physics, where you have to do certain things first to solve a problem, like list all your known and unknown variables. Find out which ones you're trying to solve for. Lift equations that relate them. Try to stuff like that, where you could go in an order to work your way through those. And the same thing in math too. It could be that kind of thing. I liked it had visual questions where it showed a screenshot of Unity itself with none of the words on there. At least it was too small for me to read any words in my old age on it. And it had you click on what part of the screen it was asking you for. So like, oh, where is the console for this? So you had to click down at the bottom where the console was. The only issue I see with that is that one of the things that they're kind of showing you how to do is how to you can basically customize it. You can move all these windows around and change their shape and change their locations to your liking. So I guess by the time you get to that, I was a little worried that if you were someone taking this specific class, you may already have started moving stuff around to where you like it by that point, and then perhaps not be clicking on the right places anymore because it's not arranged the way it was in the picture. But I could see how that could be good in physics, where I could give them an image and ask them to click on the normal vector, or in math when I say click on the integrand in this calculus equation here and tell me what it is in this integral. So that was basically my opinion. Pretty easy to use. It didn't really tell me what I could and couldn't skip. I just, again, ended up finding that I could skip all that accidentally. So I guess if you know stuff and you really want to get going through it, you can kind of just skip to where you want to be and only do the parts that you need. And as long as you can pass the test and pay for your either digital or printable or printed certificate, then you're good to go. All right, I think that's about it. I might flip through a couple more of these just to kind of show you go through and answer these. The answer instruction things basically just say answer true or false. They're not super detailed on that. But you can pick an answer. I'm going to randomly guess here and not even read, and I'll tell you, oh, it's correct or incorrect, and then you move on and go to the next section here, which again sometimes would kick me out of it for some reason and take me to a different part. There's also a little part up here where you can skip around to different places. This took me a little bit to notice that I could come over here like that and get that. And then of course the assessment at the end, which is doing that. All right. I think that's about it. And hope it was what y'all were looking for. So thanks. Now I just have to figure out how to end this. And